Solomon's Prayer for Wisdom, 1 Kings 3:6-9, the full version of Solomon's Prayer for Wisdom, 1 Kings 3:6-9 from the King James Version. And Solomon said, Thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth, and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in, and thy servant is in the midst of thy people which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? This prayer is renowned for Solomon's humble request for wisdom, rather than wealth, power, or long life, setting an example of prioritizing discernment and service as a leader. Solomon's prayer for wisdom in 1 Kings 3:6-9 holds a foundational place in biblical wisdom literature, embodying themes and values at the heart of this tradition. Solomon's request is marked by deep humility. He acknowledges his inexperience, I am but a little child, and his dependence on God for discernment, I know not how to go out or come in. This posture models how authentic wisdom begins with recognizing one's limitations and turning to God as the ultimate source of understanding. The prayer is not for personal gain, but for the ability to discern between good and bad for the sake of justly governing God's people. This focus on communal well-being and righteous judgment highlights wisdom as a practical, ethical skill that benefits others, not just the self. In the original Hebrew, Solomon asks for a hearing heart, the ability to listen deeply and discern rightly. Biblical wisdom literature, especially Proverbs, attributed mostly to Solomon, often emphasizes listening, hearing, and responding to the voice of God, and the instruction of the wise as the path to true understanding and skillful living. Solomon's prayer affirms that wisdom is a divine gift, not merely human cleverness. The biblical tradition, reflected in Proverbs and echoed in later writings, for example James 1:5, consistently teaches that God is the giver of true wisdom to those who ask with humility and sincerity. This narrative sets a precedent for believers to seek wisdom through prayer, prioritizing discernment and understanding God's way above personal ambition, wealth, or power. It demonstrates that wise leadership and daily living depend on God's guidance, not just personal ability. Solomon's story shapes the entire wisdom tradition in Israel. The book of Proverbs is framed as a collection of Solomon's wisdom sayings, and wisdom is portrayed as practical discernment, ethical behavior, and a life oriented toward God's instruction, an inheritance flowing from Solomon's foundational prayer. Solomon's prayer for wisdom is significant in biblical wisdom literature because it exemplifies humble dependence on God, prioritizes righteous living for the good of others, and underscores the centrality of listening, discernment, and prayerful pursuit of God-given understanding, values that continue to shape wisdom literature throughout the Bible. Solomon's prayer for wisdom in 1 Kings 3:6-9 remains highly relevant today for several profound reasons. In a world full of complex choices and responsibilities, Solomon's humble request for wisdom, rather than wealth or power, is a timeless example for anyone in leadership or service. It encourages today's leaders, whether in families, organizations, or communities, to seek discernment and understanding for the good of others, not just personal gain. Solomon admits, I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in, modeling the importance of humility and recognizing our limitations. This is especially important in a culture that often values self-sufficiency. Solomon's example reminds us that true wisdom begins with acknowledging our need for help and guidance. The prayer centers on asking God to give an understanding heart, emphasizing that wisdom does not come solely from intellect or experience, but from a relationship with God. For people today, this encourages a posture of prayerful dependence on God's direction in daily life and major decisions. Solomon's desire to discern between good and bad resonates in contemporary discussions about justice, ethics, and fairness. It highlights the value of seeking clarity in moral choices and acting in ways that benefit the wider community, principles that are vital in personal, social, and public spheres. Biblical wisdom literature, rooted in Solomon's story, teaches that God is willing to grant wisdom to anyone who asks sincerely. See also James 1:5. This promise invites people today, regardless of background or status, to seek God's guidance in both ordinary and extraordinary moments. Solomon's prayer is relevant today as a call to humility, ethical leadership, reliance on God, and the continual pursuit of wisdom, a foundation for living and leading well in every generation. James 1:5 explicitly invites all believers to pray for wisdom. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, and it shall be given him. Solomon's prayer sets a pattern that is available to every person of faith, not just ancient kings. I encourage you to see yourself in Solomon, whether facing big life decisions, leadership responsibilities, or everyday moral choices. Can you ask God for the wisdom needed and trust God to answer with what is best for you and for those surrounding you? Thank you so much for joining me as we explored the timeless relevance of Solomon's prayer for wisdom. I am truly grateful for each of you. Your willingness to listen, reflect, and grow together makes this community so special. Sharing these lessons on humility, discernment, and seeking God's guidance is a blessing, and I deeply appreciate your presence here. If this episode encouraged or inspired you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment, like this podcast, share it with someone who might need this message, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on faith and wisdom. Your engagement not only uplifts this space, but helps us reach even more hearts. And just a quick reminder, some of the links mentioned in the description are affiliate links. If you choose to use them, they help support this channel at no extra cost to you. Thank you for your support and understanding. May you go forward feeling blessed, equipped with wisdom, and confident that when you seek understanding with humility, God is faithful to answer. Blessings to you all.